Hello, and thank you for taking 30 minutes to learn how Chaos Search can help you save at least 30% and up to 80% alongside Datadog, so you can adopt a best-of-breed approach to observability and have significant savings, unlimited retention, and superior analytical flexibility versus just using Datadog as a full-stack solution. My name is Andre Rocha, and I'm the VP of Product and Operation at Chaos Search. And I'll be walking you through a couple of slides to tell you more about what is Chaos Search and how to use it alongside Datadog. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll have a brief demo about how to set up Chaos Search, how to leverage it for analytics, and how to integrate it with Datadog. That will be done by my colleague, Bob Barron, a solutions architect at Chaos Search. So Chaos Search is the first Search.SQL analytical database built for chaos scale. What that means is that we make your cloud storage performant, so you can just stream your data into your cloud object storage. We're going to ingest that data, transform it into our proprietary data representation, store it back on your side, so we don't store any data on our side, and then make it available for analytics via open APIs like Elasticsearch API and Trino API, and also in our console via OpenSearch dashboards and Superset. So you can leverage it for best-of-breed observability, security data lake, and deeper application insights. You can see here some of our customers, and they have two key things in common. They have data at scale, and this means hundreds of gigabytes a day to terabytes, tens of terabytes, hundreds of terabytes a day. And also, they like to keep ownership of their own data. So you have customers like Equifax in financial services and Kushki, edtech companies like Blackboard, or software companies like Revenate, Armor, and ServicePower that have strong compliance needs and data security needs that are met by our architecture. All of them leverage our unlimited retention, fast time to value, a very high savings, especially at scale, and a truly managed service that can free up your team so they can focus on managing their production infrastructure instead of managing our system. So how does this work? It's pretty simple. Three key steps. Step one is streaming all your data, typically log and event data, into your cloud storage. Then you need to create a new cloud storage bucket where we're going to store all the data that we ingest. So no data is stored on our side. And you need to create some SQS and PubSub queues so you can do live ingestion without maintenance. Then after that, you need to connect your storage to our stateless fabric. You need to give us read-only access to the raw data buckets, read-write access to the new bucket that you create for the chaos index. And then you need to configure some artifacts, object groups that work as like a type of stream, and views that are virtual that allow you to query multiple of those streams or split and isolate access to a part of those streams. Imagine part of your application logs for each of your application teams. And at the end, you can analyze this either via open APIs like Elasticsearch and Trino, or in our console via OpenSearch dashboards and Superset. And you'll see all of this in the demo. The benefits are superior cost performance at scale with minute time to glass and seconds of query resolution times. Superior cost, both because all data gets stored into your cloud object storage, which is the cheapest and most scalable storage service in the cloud. And also because when we ingest the data, we compress it typically 5 to 20 times. So you get data that is much smaller in a very cheap storage service. And because of that, you can store it for a much longer period of time, hence the unlimited retention. Because we don't store any data, we don't charge for your retention period. Second, we're built for flexibility, both on the ingestion, where we're built to handle changing schemas and nested structures that are typical in JSON files. And also on the analytics part, where because we do not have a strict data model in our platform, that means that you can analyze it flexibly, either via Elasticsearch API or Trino API. And finally, we were built with security first principles to meet your security and governance needs. All data gets stored on your account, and we integrate with your SSO, so you have a single point of to manage access, and we can leverage the durability and scalability of cloud storage. We're also SOC 2 Type 2 compliant and can meet all your GDPR requirements. And we have Equifax as a customer, so we meet all of their security requirements of a credit bureau with very strict security needs. So how can you use this alongside Datadog? And why would you do that? Basically because we're a perfect complement to Datadog. Datadog is an observability application that goes all the way from the agent to the monitoring, and is focused primarily on monitoring production infrastructure and microservices architecture. Because it's focused on monitoring, it has a lot of capabilities for dashboarding and alerting, and to process metrics that need to be processed in a very quick fashion, so you can alert as problems arise. We, on the other hand, were built to ingest large amounts of data at scale, cost effectively, and with flexible analytics. Because of that, while Datadog is easy to get started and a very popular tool, it gets very expensive at scale. And there's no place where that is probably more prominent than log and event, that typically is charged by the volume. And so as volume increases, and as you need to keep it for a longer retention, which Datadog also charges you for, your bill balloons. Whilst with us, we are built to handle that log and event without retention limits and a fraction of the cost. So together, you can adopt a best-of-breed approach, so you can monitor with Datadog and have unlimited retention with ChaosSearch. So you can have full observability over your microservices architectures at a fraction of the cost. So let's dig deeper into the price. So you can see here in the middle a price slider that we have on our website. You can go into this link and explore for yourself, given your data size. But it basically gives you the price of ChaosSearch versus alternatives at different levels of ingestion. Here on the left, you have the Datadog pricing model for log and event, which has two parts to it. You get charged 10 cents per gigabyte ingested, and then a rate that goes anywhere from $1 to $2.50 by the retention period. So if you store your logs with 3 days in hot storage, you pay about $1. If you keep them for 30 days in hot storage, you pay about $2.50 per million events, which broadly maps to gigabyte. Whilst on the other hand, with ChaosSearch, we charge anywhere from 15 cents to 30 cents per gigabyte, but with no relation to retention. You always get unlimited retention. You just get a lower unit price as your volume grows. And you can use the slider to see what it would be for your specific situation. And then on top of that, we just charge a tenant cost to cover our base costs. With that, you have about a tenth of the price of Datadog, which can show you the level of savings that you can have with ChaosSearch. On top of that, if you have use cases where ingestion is not, the level of ingestion is not fully aligned with the value, then you can use our consumption-based pricing, where you only pay for the compute you use. We charge 20 cents per worker hour, and this pricing model is very efficient when you have high ingest, low query type of use cases, which can be even a fraction of our ingest-based price. All right, so how can you use us alongside Datadog and have both the increased savings and also the increased retention and analytical flexibility? There are two modes. You can reduce the log retention in Datadog and still keep it as a full stack observability application, or you can just centralize all the log and events into ChaosSearch and just use Datadog for monitoring. And here are the implications. If you decide to reduce retention, you'd keep Datadog for monitoring and about 3 days of retention in logs. And then from then, you can use ChaosSearch to pick it up from the log archival bucket, where Datadog allows you to send data beyond the retention period. And you can take it off from there, and you can analyze all that data via our console. With that, you pay Datadog 10 cents per log per gigabyte ingested, plus about $1 per million events. And then ChaosSearch 15 to 30 cents. Here we're using 30 cents for the high watermark. And so in total, you pay about $1.50 per gigabyte ingested, and you get unlimited retention. These are 40% savings versus keeping 30 days retention in Datadog. If you decide to centralize all log and event in ChaosSearch and just keep Datadog for monitoring, then you would have no log costs in Datadog and just pay ChaosSearch the 15 to 30 cents per gigabyte. And so with that, on the high watermark, you'd pay 30 cents per gigabyte and have unlimited retention, which is about a tenth of the $2.50 per million events ingested that you'd pay Datadog for 30 days retention. And the best solution depends on your use case. If Datadog is fully embedded within your users' workflows as a full stack solution across metrics, logs, and traces, and you use log and event primarily for troubleshooting, then you may want to consider reducing just the retention in Datadog and using this as an augment. On the other hand, if you want to maximize your savings, especially if you use a log and event from an analytical standpoint to understand trends over time beyond troubleshooting, then you may want to consider centralizing log and event in Chaos Search. And this is how architecturally it would look like. If you want to reduce retention in Datadog, you'd keep all your existing pipeline with Datadog, all your agents, all the application across different data types. And then what will happen is after you set up your retention period and have your log archival bucket, you can just connect that log archival bucket to Chaos Search, giving us read-only access to that bucket, create the queues or either the SQS or pub/sub queues that we talked about in the beginning, and a new bucket where we're going to store all our Chaos index that you give us read-write access to. And you can start leveraging Chaos Search so that as new data lands into the log archival bucket, it become immediately available for you to analyze via open source dashboards or superset in our console. And you can move seamlessly between the Datadog application and the Chaos Search console using context links, which you can define in Datadog dashboards and can keep the context, namely things like the timestamp and filters that you have in a dashboard, so you can move seamlessly from a monitoring dashboard in Datadog into the discover pane in open source dashboards, so you can troubleshoot. On the other hand, if you want to maximize savings, you, instead of using the Datadog agent to ingest the logs from your infrastructure in the application, you need to send all those logs to raw data buckets on your side. And we can help you with that during the evaluation of Chaos Search. You can use any of open source or managed services from Logstash to Kinesis Firehose to Fluentd or FluentBit, depending on the source and your requirements. Just land that data into cloud storage, and then everything else is the same. You can analyze seamlessly the data into our console and move between the monitoring dashboards in Datadog and hunting, discover pane in open source dashboards, or even superset in the Chaos Search console. So your users can have a seamless user experience. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Bob, who can show you all of this, from setting up Chaos Search to how you can leverage it via open source dashboards and superset, and how you can integrate it with Datadog to make this experience seamless.
Thanks, Andre. As Andre mentioned, my name is Bob Aaron. I'm a solution architect with Chaos Search. And what I would like to do today is walk you through the setup and usage of Chaos Search, our platform, how you set it up and how you connect to your data within Chaos Search to run your analysis. And once we do that, I'm going to take you through and show you how to do the integration between Datadog and Chaos Search so that you can use the best of both worlds, Datadog and Chaos Search, to analyze your data. So let's get started. What I have here up on my screen to start with is just kind of a look at our documentation, our docs, to show you how easy it is to get Chaos Search up and running. Basically, what you need to do is connect your cloud object storage, in this example, AWS S3, to Chaos Search. And as you can see, we have this all laid out within our documentation on how to do that. We provide both CloudFormation templates as well as Terraform scripts that will help you get through that work to get that connected. So let's jump over into the actual UI of Chaos Search. So once I log into Chaos Search, and as Andre mentioned, we use single sign-on. We're going to go into this section here where we can set up the credentials for AWS. So once I use either of those methods, CloudFormation or Terraform, I'll get a role ARN, which I'll place in here. And what that does is creates the ability for us to read your data, your raw data within your bucket. So I enter that in here. And once that's entered, you'll see as I jump into our UI, I'm going to see a list of buckets that I have access to based on the policy that was set up. Now, within the screen here, you'll see at the top here a number of different tabs. This is kind of broken up into two sections. These first three tabs, storage, groups, and views, are mostly used by data administrators, whereas the search analytics and SQL analytics are used by the end users to actually analyze and query the data. And system dashboard here on the end is just kind of an overall view of your cluster, what's going on in the cluster and how it's being used. So I'm going to walk through both pieces. Once I have access to my buckets, what I'm going to do is first do what's called creating an object group. So I'm going to click on create object group here. What that allows me to do is group together or bring together data within one index, Chaos Search index, that I want to be able to analyze. And I can utilize prefixes and regular expressions to figure out what data from within this bucket I want to bring together. So for example, I may decide to look at CloudTrail data. So I could start typing CloudTrail here and I'll see all the CloudTrail data come up with on my screen here. We also have the ability to do some advanced filtering where we could do blacklisting, whitelisting, and some other types of things from a filtering standpoint. Next, what I'm going to do is click next here. And what you'll see is that we automatically recognize the type of data that is being indexed. So for CloudTrail here, for example, we automatically recognize that it's JSON data, that it's compressed. And now we have some options for flattening the data. So depending on how nested your JSON data is, you can decide to flatten it from no flattening all the way down to unlimited, as well as expanding it either vertically or horizontally. And that really depends on your use case, which we can help you go through and decide what's the optimal way to actually index this data. I'm going to hit create object group and give it a name. Datadog object group demo. And now you see we have two options here. One is the retention policy, which allows us to determine how long we want to keep our data within our index. I'm going to click that off so that it's unlimited. And then you have the ability here, as Andre mentioned earlier, to create the ability to use an SQS queue for live indexing. So as new data arrives, we get a notification and we'll continually live index data. I'm just going to do static indexing right now and hit create on the data that's sitting in my bucket. So it goes out and it's going to create the information for me. I'm going to hit start indexing so that it's going to go out and start indexing my data. So what this is doing is going through my bucket, looking at the data that I've chosen for this index, and it's going to index it. And you can see that it's starting to parse the data and create the records within this environment. Now that I have my data being indexed, the next step within here is to go into what we call our views. So let me click on views. Within views, what we're doing here is creating virtual views into the data. So we're not materializing and creating more copies of your data. It's a virtual view into that index that we just created. What's nice about that is I can create many different views on the data depending on who's looking at the data. And with our RBAC controls, rule-based access, we can decide who has access to those views and the data. So security allows you to determine who actually sees what data. So what I'm going to do is hit create view. And when I go to create a view, it's going to give me a list of all my object groups that I have created. Now, what's nice here is I can pick one or more object groups to create my view on. So I could come over and pick any one of these object groups or multiple object groups if I decide to, and create my view within top of that data. So I'm going to hit next on this particular object group. And what you'll see is it'll give me a list of the columns as well as the data types that it was determined to have. If I go all the way to the right-hand side here, we have some options where we can create filters on the data to filter out certain data or filter in data, as well as do some transformations on the data. And if I click on the transformations, just to give you a look at that, we have a number of ways that we could do transformations, either using regular expressions, JSON path, or if your data are IPs or geopoints, we can also treat those as those types of data types, as well as nested JSON if you have a string of JSON within your data. So once I do any type of transformations, I'm going to come back out, hit next, and now it's going to give me the option to select a timestamp column. Since we're looking at data over a time range, this gives us the ability to pick a time range that we're going to look at the data over. I'm going to pick event time in this case, hit create view, give this a name, and hit create. Now, at this point, I have a view into my data that now I can use our analytics tools to actually query the data. So if I come over here and click on Search Analytics first, this is our open dashboards built into our platform. Within open dashboards, you have the ability to do discovery or basically hunt through your data. You can create visualizations, charts, graphs, etc., and then put all those visualizations into a dashboard. We can also do alerting, so you could set up monitors and triggers so that when certain conditions happen, you could send alerts to things like Slack or any other type of environment where you have a webhook that we can attach to. Within open dashboards, if you're familiar with Kibana or open dashboards, basically you're going to come in and pick your view that you created, which could be any one of these views, which is like this one that I just created. I'm going to pick a time range of the past 6 years just to pull all my data in from this bucket, and you'll see it'll go out and bring the data back. And then you have all the options available to you to filter data in, filter data out. The nice part here is you also have the ability to do text querying. So I could do things like look for data within certain fields by using text values. So I can do something like, let's see, records.aws region. And I want to look for anything that has the word East in it. So I can do text searching directly from here as well. All right. So that's the first part, which is the search analytics. And it'll show you at the top here how much data was scanned. I have the ability to cancel queries when they're running. So this is the open dashboards environment. As Andre mentioned, we also have the ability to use SQL. So a built-in superset, and it's a full-blown SQL editor, along with the ability to do charts and dashboards as well. So let's take a look at the SQL editor here quick. And what you'll see here within the SQL editor is the ability to come in and write ANSI SQL. And we're using the same views and data that we were just using over in the OpenSearch dashboard. So you're not duplicating data. You don't have to pull data out and put it in other formats. It's all available directly from this environment. So if I click on the side here, we can actually see all the different views and tables, as you refer to them in SQL, that I had over in my other environment in Search Analytics. So if I click on Run here, you'll see it'll take the SQL statement, execute it, and bring data back. Now, the real nice piece about using SQL in this environment is something that you can't really do in OpenSearch dashboards or a lot of our competitors' products, is the ability to do joins, correlate your data, do correlations between different views or tables. So as you can see in this example, I'm actually going to join data between 3 different tables or views. I have data alarms coming in, but those alarms are coming in for different devices, and I want to know who manufactured those or what account they're coming from. So again, I could run this, and it'll actually go out and query the data and bring me my information back. So that's an overview of ChaosSearch and how you can use ChaosSearch to access your data and analyze your data. The second piece that we wanted to talk about was how do we integrate with Datadog? If you're using Datadog for looking at and monitoring your systems, how can I make that jump from Datadog directly to ChaosSearch so that I could go back through my historical data that I want to keep and retain within ChaosSearch? So let me jump over into Datadog as soon as. Okay, so if I go over into Datadog, Andre mentioned there's a couple ways to get your data into ChaosSearch. So one of the ways is to use the archives feature within Datadog, where you can tell Datadog to directly archive your data into S3. Basically, you set up a AWS S3 integration from Datadog and tell it to archive your logs over to your S3 bucket. The other way, as he mentioned, is directly going from your applications, from your systems directly to S3 by using something like FluentD, FluentBit, et cetera. So in this example, you can have your archive set up. And now, okay, I'm searching and I'm going through my dashboards, and I create a dashboard to look at my data. So let me go into my TV mode screen here. And you can see I'm pulling CPU data into Datadog. So some metrics on how my CPU is being utilized. Well, this is great, but now I'm saying, okay, well, at some point here, I started seeing my data CPU usage going up, and I want to know, well, what's happening at this point? And I want to go into my logs to see what's going on. So instead of retaining 30 days, 90 days of data within Datadog, I can keep all that data over in ChaosSearch. And how can I get there? Simply by creating what's called context links. So when I click on this particular graph, you'll see that I have some different options here that I've created where I can directly go over and jump into our product. So I'm actually loading our Kibana or OpenSearch environment and coming in, and you can see that my time frame, 15 minutes, the last 15 minutes, is the same as what I was doing over here within Datadog. So as I jumped over here, I was able to drive directly into this particular data for the same time frame that I was using over in Datadog. And now I can start using ChaosSearch to drill further down into and hunt down into the data to find out what problems I may have encountered. So you may say, well, how easy is it to create these links from Datadog over to ChaosSearch? It's actually really easy. So if I go into one of these widgets, this line bar graph, for example, line graph, I'll click here, and there's basically an option here that says create a context link. And I'll pick one of these, the one that I just chose. I'm going to click on there. And what you'll see, you basically create a label and you provide a URL over to where you want to go, which is our ChaosSearch environment. And what's nice here is that I can utilize some predefined variables, such as start and end times for the dashboard itself, the widget itself, or for tags. And these tags are basically variables that I could create on the template itself. So I can create different variables that I want to pass over, maybe to filter out based on a region, based on an error code. So it's very flexible on how you pass over that information. You can also create things like notepads where I can come in and click on this link and go directly over to our SQL environment. So as you can see, you can save not only your costs, but have that direct integration from Datadog to ChaosSearch. And now we'll open up to questions. So if anybody has questions, please feel free to ask.